Don't be stupid,
That's
Antoine.
the way it will be working.
But come on.
It's a terrible way to do an argumentation.
No,
I mean,
but you are saying it has a risk and we have to live with that. Okay,
you're saying that
end of
banning
story.
PFAS is realistic, then you must be against climate change.
And
the link.
No,
Woohoo, the point. Woohoo.
Nein, I'm not saying. I'm
arguing by saying that we should control them, and I'm listen
to yourself a little bit.
Guys, I don't even know if I should contradict him because he's so much in his word now. I don't want to break him. So seriously, Björn, you do believe we do the 3 parts on the same topic?
Hey, come on, that is such an important topic. We have to talk about that.
But editorial, then top 3, then deep dive, on one topic.
It is crucial for the entire water industry. Come on.
What's that topic that's so important?
There's only one topic, and you know it. You don't know it? It's PFAS.
Ah, PFAS.
Yeah, you know PFAS, right? One of the most toxic components you can have in your body. And we all have it in our body, so we should talk about that.
Okay, so if we do the full show on PFAS, what's going to be your editorial?
How to get rid of that? I mean, there's an easy solution. We can just ban it. Easy, right?
Yeah, easy. Not realistic, but easy. Okay, then I guess I can build a top 3 around... Because there was some news over the past months which really pissed me off when it came to PFAS.
Really?
Yeah, I think... I might be a bit aggressive today.
Oh, come on. But by the way, we have to welcome all the audience. Hey.
Oh, hi. Welcome to the show. So, hi Björn, how are you?
Hi Antoine, I'm very fine. Welcome back to Germany.
Do you think that someone would have a hint in that picture as to the place where we are at?
Nobody will know where we are, and we will not tell the people, okay?
Okay, so it's a secret.
It's a secret.
In that picture, there's nowhere to see where we are, so if you can guess it, just put it in the comments. That would be interesting. And that being said...
Yeah, let's go. Let's ban the PFAS. Come on.
Ban the PFAS. That's not realistic, Björn. So welcome everybody. Today we have quite a special show, as we told you a second ago, because we have one topic. That doesn't happen that often, and that one topic is PFAS. We thought it's big enough that it deserves to have the 3 part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
But still, it opens with your editorial. So what's your editorial on PFAS, Björn?
First of all, it is about PFAS, and I would like to raise a question. Shouldn't we ban all the PFAS? And I know your answer right now because you're saying, it's not possible at all, because I know you. I would like to go a little bit through the history first, before we raise the question and put a little bit, or let's say, have a look on the devil in the room, or let's say the big elephant in the room. The first thing, if we have a PFAS show, we should go through the history and should tell the people, okay, 3M used the first time PFAS, right? It was in 47 with the PFAS. That was the first one. And the first thing in 61, DuPont found that PFAS could harm something. They did some tests with rats and all that. And the first...
You've seen the movie, right?
The movie is Dark Waters, by the way, for all who wants to dig deep into that topic and wants to have a little bit of Hollywood atmosphere, which is pretty good, by the way. The first time, really, DuPont in 61 discovered, okay, there's something wrong. So it was the first time. In 81, even 3M found that PFOA ingested by rats caused birth defects, right? And 2 of 7 employees who give birth to child, they had a defect on the child. So that was the next sign. In 84, DuPont tested public water supplies, and they figured out, okay, all limits are a little bit too high for PFAS, and so on and so on.
All right, we eat tonight.
Wait a minute.
And that really leads us into a discussion which, is not ended. The EU, for instance, is going to think, in January, we had the first hint by the EU government that they want to forbid something, that they are thinking to forbid, or at least they put it on a very top level. EPA last year, they came all and say, well, Gen X, for instance, 17 times higher what we ever thought.
Well, Gen X wasn't regulated at all. It wasn't even on the health advisory. It was the first time they put it on.
Correct. But all the others, even there, they said...
PFOA, they said 17 times higher than what they had before, and 100,000 times higher.
All I'm saying is, since decades, we know it is so harmful. We know all, we have it in our blood. You have it, your kids have it, my kids have it in their blood. We all know that. Why don't we ban that? We had the example with some years ago with CFCs. 35 years ago, we banned CFCs because we saw that there's an effect. And now the ozone effect in the atmosphere, the ozone hole, is almost closed. One of the reasons is that we banned CFC. So if we see things like that, why are we not going just to ban that? I know that the full industry would say it doesn't work. We have it everywhere. We have it here in my iPad. We have it in my watch. I have it at home, everywhere. But aren't we so smart to find an alternative for PFAS if we just ban it? Instead of going after and try to find a solution after a solution after a solution, and we find it's harmful and people died, people get sick all the way long. It would be in principle easy. I know it's not easy to replace these things and that we have issues with that.
Easy.
But it would be easy to ban, but it is not easy to replace it. I'm fully aware about that. But humankind has proven that they will find a way to overcome this. CFC is the best example. Even now we have still fridges, right? Your fridge is working, my fridge is working.
And it's full of PFAS.
But
we've replaced CFC by PFAS, so you have to find a solution for the fridges.
But then find one maybe next time, which is better than PFAS, which doesn't harm the environment, which doesn't harm our human body. One other thing which really triggered me, and I mean, we all know, yes, DuPont, we all blame DuPont, we all blame 3M and so on and so on. 3M said, well, I don't want to produce any PFAS anymore. And I was thinking to myself, let's say a little bit in a sarcastic way, there was a merger some years ago with DuPont and Dow.
Just come on!
What? No!
Yeah, wait! You see? No big deal.
Isn't that an evil move that you have here a company who's producing all the PFAS, and on the same side, you're just acquiring or you merge with another company who has some film tech RO membranes to treat the PFAS water? Isn't that a little bit a devil's game here we are in? And that is a little bit the question I really would like to raise. Shouldn't we just ban? I know that would be a very harsh solution.
Do you know the Minamata conference?
The Minamata?
Yeah.
No.
The Minamata conference decided to ban mercury. Mm-hmm. And we know that mercury, I mean, you wouldn't drink mercury, would you?
No, for sure not.
That's why your thermometer at home doesn't have mercury anymore. It's something else.
True.
Everything has been replaced. Everything. But really everything? Don't you know an application in the water industry which still uses mercury?
There's something, but I can't.
UV lamps.
Yes, true.
UV lamps. All the UV we use to disinfect our water, it's vapor mercury lamps. So it is banned for now over a decade. There's Minamata, there's RoHS, but it is banned with an asterisk. And the asterisk says it is banned unless you are in a situation where there is no suitable alternative, in which case you can keep doing it. Which means eventually, if UV LED catches up, then mercury will go out of UV lamps and mercury will fade out.
Okay.
Now the link to PFAS. If tomorrow you ban PFAS itself is one substance, but the family of
40,000
perfluoride, it's 4,700 in the world. If we look at Europe, we use 2,300 of them.
Sure.
We use them for things where you will have a hard time to explain people that you ban it.
I know.
Take a flame retardant. You ban the flame retardant and then a dramatic fire happens and people die. What will you tell them? That they died of fire because you didn't want them to die from cancer?
Don't be stupid, Antoine.
That's the way it will be working.
But all I'm saying is, for sure, you have to find a way to replace it. We all know that there are smart solutions to replace it. Maybe they are not better. Maybe they are more expensive. Maybe they have other drawbacks. But why not at least testing that? To say, well, it harms us. Yes, my kids have it in the blood. What would you do if it figured out that some of your kids would really have that and they have a horrible time? What would you do? You would be one of the first would say, well, we should ban that now. Otherwise, how you would explain that to your kids? And all I'm saying is we should at least think about that. I know that we have 4,000 of these PFAS everywhere. It is everywhere. I know that. If we don't ban that, no alternative will come up. because there's no market. If you keep PFAS, nobody will develop a solution because he knows, well, PFAS is, well, this product is much cheaper, maybe better, but it has PFAS. And as long as it's not banned, my product will not come up. I will not be successful. That's why I not develop something. If you would ban PFAS from now on, you start tomorrow, you will find hundreds of ideas immediately. I'm 100% sure. That's humankind. That's humankind.
I think you're right. I think that these 100 of ideas will exist. I think that at least 70 out of the 100 will be worse than PFAS.
I'm not sure whether they are worse. Maybe they are. Maybe we don't have the effects right now. Sure.
We will take 20, 30 more years to realize they are worse, and then we will have to agree that they are worse, and then we will ban those worse solution, and we will look for something which is again worse. The thing is,
okay, what is the alternative? To live with that? To say,
Yes.
okay, everybody, sorry guys, Antoine is telling you, you have to live that your kids have PFAS in your blood. Sorry, that's it. So we can end
there's
that?
so many things in our blood. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but today we are just talking about PFAS.
The thing is, I'll make you my best impersonation of Donald Trump I can do, which is, sounds good, doesn't work.
Sounds good, doesn't work.
So take it as you want. But my point here is, yeah, great, you ban PFAS. And so what? I mean, look, I won't take your favorite example of the car manufacturer. I'm going to take another example, which is the clothing industry. Everybody tells you fast fashion is terrible. It's bad for the planet. You should stop that. Let's ban it, everybody. Everybody knows that. And still, the fast fashion brands are very successful because people say something and then they do something else. So you will tell people, let's ban PFAS. And then they will say, yeah, that's a good idea. PFAS is dangerous. Let's ban it. And then the next day, they will have something where they have the use of PFAS because it's pretty convenient when you are out there in the cold and you can have your shoes being isolated. You love that. And you say, hey, why do we go back in time and do we have to again have our wet foot? That is really what we have to be ready to do. And I know you want to concentrate on PFAS, but to me, mercury is a good example. To me, the way we deal with micropollutants is a good example. To me, the way we've had several fads of this is dangerous, let's ban it, and then everybody forgets it. It's the same story.
But why we are talking about that? Why we are developing technologies to get rid of that if nobody cares?
It's not a matter of nobody cares. It's you don't want to have it in your water. You don't want to have it in the air you breathe.
But we have to be realistic and we have to tell the people the truth. It is not just the water. It is everywhere. PFAS is even here.
Sure.
So, and that is the point.
Sure,
and
but
that,
at least you can avoid to ingest it in quantities which might be harmful. I mean, if you look at what EPA came up in terms of health advisory, are they saying it's almost always dangerous because they go to parts per quadrillion? But what happens? As long as it's not regulated, first, it doesn't exist. First. Second, you've said it. We and I'm going to quote Seth Siegel, who said me exactly that on that microphone, who said me,
You think it was just this year that we discovered PFAS was a problem? We've known PFAS is a problem for a while now, and yet we just let it go and let it go and let it go.
we know it since
We know
decades.
it.
That's why I
We
came
know
with the
it.
story. Yes.
but if you don't come with a better alternative,
But the alternative will not come if you don't do something again. If you say, well, okay, we have to treat it now with that technology, you have to do that, and you have to have this limit, blah, 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 blah. You will not replace it. Nothing will happen. The industry will still use PFAS for their products. But if you ban it, then it's a different dynamic. That's all I'm saying.
That's easy to say. Let's ban it. It's
Absolutely,
simply not
absolutely.
realistic.
I fully agree with you. But let's say if we don't give it a chance to think about and to speak about that, then nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. We can talk about technologies, which we will do later.
Thank you.
Is this too much?
But what is the result? There is no one technology which can remove everything. And maybe in 10 years we will find, okay, we haven't overlooked this PFAS. It was not on the list,
I
right?
think you're being really black or white, like always.
Yes.
And the thing is,
But
life
that-
itself is a risk. You come to Earth, and there's a major risk that at some point
But
you
shouldn't
die.
but shouldn't
And
we as society ensure
life is
to minimize the risk?
It's not a matter of minimizing, it's a matter of managing the risk. Whatever we do in our lives is a risk.
Sure.
Life finds a way.
If we decide to get rid of PFAS, why not? Let's do it. But then it means it will have consequences because the services they were giving us, we will no longer have it. We will replace it by something which might be worse, which might be better, you don't know. So you're replacing something which we start to understand by something we don't understand at all and which doesn't exist yet. And you're relying on the same companies which have developed those to develop the next ones. And everybody's happy, but sorry, the same causes often do the same consequences. So that's one thing. And the other side of that story is that PFAS today sure has drawbacks, but it has also benefits. benefits. I mentioned the flame retardant. There's the
are a lot-
isolation capability.
Sure.
It's the foam which helps you to stop a fire. I mean, it has a lot of perks. And by killing one risk, you're going to generate other risk. And I'm no one to tell which risk balance is the best. I'm just saying that it is really too easy to say, let's ban it.
Okay, but what is the solution? To say, well, we know must we have this limit and we have to this technology and then we can use it and we still have it in the blood and still children die? Really, Antoine? No, come on.
Children die. Oh,
I mean,
that's so easy.
you're saying life has a risk. Okay, sure. So why are we going to change the climate change? Why are we doing that? You don't believe in that? So why are you doing things like that? Has a risk. Come on.
It's a terrible way to do an argumentation.
No,
I mean,
but
how can we have a discussion to say,
you
you're against,
you are saying
you're
it has
saying
a
that-
risk and we have to live with that. Okay,
You're saying that
end of
banning
story.
PFAS is realistic, then you must be against climate change.
And
the link.
No,
Woohoo, the point. Woohoo.
No, I'm not saying. You are saying life has a risk. It's not about PFAS. You're saying life has a risk. Okay, and we have to live with the risk. Okay,
Björn,
but why are we? Then let's take the risk. We could save so much money without putting all the technologies so far.
Who
and
says
we
you're
can
saving
give
money?
it to the people.
Who saves you're saving money? You ban it, okay, you have to replace it with something which might be more
No,
expensive.
all you are saying is no. I taking your example. You are saying life is as a risk. So then let's save all the money we want to spend to remove PFAS and give it to the people that they have a better life and then they can live with the risk a better way.
Björn, one day you will have to understand that it's not black or white and that
Yeah,
it's
but
shaded
that-
gray, because
no, but
what you're
that
saying now
is-
is ridiculous.
No,
what I'm saying
what-
is it's about managing the risk. Managing the risk is not saying I put my
You said clearly
my
you
head
have
in
to
the
live
sand
with that.
and I say la 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 la, I don't see it. It's not that. It's about PFAS is something we start to understand when
We start to understand it is
Yeah.
again, wait. 7 for the first results that it is harmful 61. We start to understand it was more than 60 years.
That was one of the PFAS, and the one which was found to be
Yeah, but it is
the
everything
one which
started.
was found to be dangerous in 74. That one is not in circulation
No,
anymore.
61.
For a
61.
while. Let me give you an example because you want to be stupid. Let's be stupid.
No, not be stupid, but I
You
want to
have
be clear.
drugs which are forbidden. For instance, it is not allowed to go out and take some cocaine. Okay, so far we agree.
I know that you are used to that. Sure.
Okay, so cocaine is forbidden. Cocaine is a pretty complex formula. Now you take that formula and you change one covalent ion. You change it to something else. It's no longer cocaine. It's going to be cocaine
Whatever.
something. That new thing is not banned because what's banned is cocaine. So that new thing, as it is not banned, it is authorized. And so you could even go out, open a shop and sell it until a new regulator comes and say, oh, that cocaine with that new covalent ion, that's forbidden as well. And then you change another covalent ion and that new thing is not banned. So it is authorized. Do you want to play that catch game with a chemical industry, which is going to be years ahead of you, which is going to, on top of that, have patents to protect you to even understand the formula they are putting you inside? No, we have something, we start to understand what they do. We start to say, okay, compared to 10 years ago, we do know now, and we acknowledge it's 100,000 times more dangerous.
Are you getting money? Are you lobbyists by the chemical industry? You are arguing like that, really?
I'm arguing by saying that we should control them, and I'm lobbyist for them. Oh, come on, Björn.
Listen to yourself a little bit. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we should ban. At least we should think about that, and we don't develop any solution if we say, okay, it harms. Let's monitor for the next 3 years.
Let's ban cars.
No,
we will find a way, like bikes or horses.
And then after we have monitored that, okay, we know now this, let's monitor again, let's give that limit, let's do this and this and this. It will not push the industry forward to replace PFAS. That's all I'm saying. And that will not happen. And that is in principle, or let's say that should be the goal, that we replace the parts which harm us, which harm me, which harm my children. Sorry, I care about my children and I care about my life. And that's why I'm saying we should find a replacement for that. And that is not what happened. No, it's not. No, you're just saying it's a life risk, so live with that and go away.
George W. Bush barely choked on the bretzel, so let's ban bretzel because it's dangerous.
That is stupid. Doesn't make any sense.
I'm trying to come to the same level of arguments.
The argument is coming by you. I mean, I'm totally serious. If nothing happened, the industry is not striving forward to replace the PFAS in our products. If nothing happened. And that's what I'm saying.
One last thing, and then I think we're running in circles, so we can move on to my top 3. But there is a fundamental difference between the European Union and the United States.
Wow.
In the European Union,
REACH and
you
EPA.
get a new thing, and until it is proven to be manageable enough in terms of risk, it is forbidden. And once REACH or whoever in charge has said it is okay, then it goes out and it is authorized, which means that if a European company is leveraging one of these PFOA or whatever it is, which has been authorized by the European Union, and something happens, well, they can always come back and say, hey, you authorized me to use it, so I'm fine. And if you look at the number of PFAS in Europe, which are used at more than 1 ton per year, which is the threshold at which REACH really is enforced, it's very low, which means that basically it is almost unregulated because REACH has a limited. So if you want to correct that, I agree with you. Now, you take the US approach. The US approach is to say everything is allowed as long as it's not forbidden. So it's the other way around. But if now you start using something which later proves out to be harmful, dangerous, then you're liable for that. If I do my cocaine again, I put it on the market, it's not forbidden, so I can do it. But if now people take it, become addicts, lose their lives, die from it, commit suicide, I am liable for that. I was the one creating cocaine and I was the one putting it on the market. And to me, that is a much stronger burden on the industrials. And we'll discuss that again in my top 3, so I don't want to go in the depth on that one right now. But they will care about their liabilities because they will care about the billions which they risk and which will put them in bankruptcy.
Okay, sure. No, you will not put the DuPont in bankruptcy.
Why not?
Will not happen because on the other hand, they get a lot of money with Dow because we are taking the aero membranes to treat that.
Already today, they have multi-billion liabilities on PFAS.
Sure.
Now you put the threshold thus low that we're not speaking of some billions, but of several hundred of billions potentially of liabilities. At some point, if we can prove that they were the source of all of that, they will be bankrupt. They will be. And I don't know a company whose business model is to go bankrupt.
He is saying that DuPont will be bankrupt at one point of a time after everybody realizes that they are responsible for that.
Unless they change. And that is a stronger incentive than what you say, which is like, let's put a generic ban and you're free from whatever happened over the past 40 years. A ban is lame.
I'm not saying that if you put a ban on that that they are now free, that makes absolutely no sense. I'm saying, and you should listen to that, if you don't ban, if you don't do that, the industry will not strive to replace it. And that is the point.
I'll give you an example about that, but I'll do it in my top 3 because you'll see that it is exactly the continuation of that discussion.
Okay.
That's fine with you? Let's move to the top 3. So you'll quickly get why I thought it was a good idea to transition to the top 3, because you'll see that it's just a continuation of what we were discussing.
I'm pretty sure your top 3 will be the top 3 ways to replace PFAS, right?
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I was thinking it's something
so
smart.
My top 3 is going to be about smoke curtains.
Smoke curtains.
Yes. It's 3 news we've heard over the past weeks and months where we're like, wow, that's a good idea. Like almost as good as let's ban PFAS, but even better. And I'd like to explain why it's a lame, like incredibly lame idea. And my number 3, and you'll see the link, is we've heard that 3M wants to stop producing PFAS. They announced it. They made an official press release saying that they acknowledge that indeed PFAS is dangerous, and so they don't want to be part of that anymore, and so that's why they stopped PFAS. And the result was exactly what 3M expected, I guess, which was everybody start applauding and say, wow, they realized there's a problem. They finally took their responsibility and they decided to stop the production. You've recalled the dates. It's not anything new that they know that it is dangerous. So what has changed? Why did 3M decide to stop producing PFAS?
And most probably because of the chem index. There's a chem index which takes the 55 biggest chem companies and ranks them in terms of their behavior, call it this way.
So
and
ESG?
3M is so number 55. So on the last place, guess who is DuPont? And somewhere in the middle is 3M. So I'm pretty sure they want to step up a little bit.
So ESG, finance advisors telling them they should go, maybe probably activist investor as well, saying, hey, we should maybe move out of that. That's one part of the story. I would also bet that the fact that EPA in the US came out and said, as we discussed, divide by 17,000 the threshold at which things get dangerous. And we also say that Gen X is dangerous and so far and so on. Now they cannot play the card that they don't know the liability. So they have a high liability and they acknowledge the liability and they want to get a bit this virtuous image of we were the first to pull out and to say we go out of PFAS. Now let's look at the numbers. 3M does roughly 9% of its turnover on PFAS. Yeah. So sure, when you're a company and you cut 9% of your business,
1.9 billion, I think,
it is
somehow
something. It's not like zero, but it's not like I'm cutting 90% either. So it's not that much of a harm, first. And second, they say they cut, but they don't say to replace with what, because they still produce protective equipment, fire retarded clothing, and so far and so on. So if they don't treat those with PFAS, with what do they replace it? Even further.
So you are saying it is just a move due to the fact that they are a little bit want to be the first to shoot that out, because everybody is more and more shouting and screaming after the big players that they are.
When I interviewed Paul Gallet, he had this formula to say,
back in the bad old days with DuPont and 3M, EPA knew the results of a lot of the studies that were being done and did not act.
To him, that's what comes next to PFAS. And I think 3M plays that game of how do I pull out so that I'm no longer associated with DuPont, I'm no longer associated with PFAS because I'm the good guy. But wait, they said they stopped producing PFAS, and that's good on them. But maybe I've misread that press release, but I've seen nowhere the mention that they stopped using it, because they're producing their own PFAS, which they put on their own equipment.
Sure.
But if they stop producing it, what prevents them from going to another company producing PFAS and buying that, as any purchasing department would do, and use a supplier of PFAS, which would then go on their equipment, and their equipment would still have the same amount of PFAS. I have no data. This is pure speculation. I don't want you to say what I haven't said. I'm just saying that it sounds to me a bit short to just say I pull out of PFAS. Because do people really think that the amount of PFAS produced in the world changed because 3M announced they pull out?
I mean, not overnight. Definitely not.
To me, it just means that there is a new market opportunity for the other producers of PFAS.
Maybe they
one of the competitors of the market, it's going to be more easy to get the market share for your existing PFAS.
Maybe 3M will acquire, I don't know, Toray, to have also a membrane supplier to get rid of the PFAS out of the water.
And 3M as a face.
I mean, how?
When 3M was producing PFAS, at least we knew that 3M was producing PFAS. Now that 3M pulls out, whoever no-name company takes that market and is going to produce the same PFAS in conditions we don't know and in places we don't know, because it's not 3M anymore. So we simply have to waste a bit of time to understand who it was. So I'm not saying it's a bad move. I'm just saying that uploading the move just and saying, wow, they pulled out of PFAS.
But let's say based on what you said in the editorial, you would definitely bet on the fact that they will be bankrupt maybe in whenever. Because actually, I mean, they should all be in charge. 3M was the first to produce PFAS. Full stop.
But still, I guess the move is to prevent to be bankrupt. It's also to say, look,
so that's a move.
You just changed the level at which I'm liable. Well, I didn't realize that it was so dangerous. I'm really sorry, Mr. US EPA. Hence, as a good guy, which I am, I'm pulling out.
I don't think that is so easy.
But maybe I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying. And
what was the reason why they really did this? I mean, there must be a reason, and I think they saw this somehow coming. It's coming more and more. EPA is more and more stricter.
It sounds to me like when my daughter is doing something really stupid, and she knows it is something really stupid, and I come to tell her that she should be stopping doing that because it's really stupid. And she sees me coming before I even say something. She say, "Oh, I'll stop that," because she's not stupid. And if she does that, she thinks that I'm gonna be so proud of her because she stopped on herself.
This is a good question. 3M was producing products, and they use PFAS for that. How do they replace? Do they have no longer the products, or is it really that they just stopped producing PFAS to sell to others? So what about their products which include PFAS? That would be the big question here.
Hey 3M, you see, I have just a question, and I no one to doubt your sincerity when you're making such a move. So you probably know why you did it, and maybe you didn't get the chance to explain it. So just reach out to us. We'd be happy to have you and for you to say why you pulled out. For me, not knowing, it just sounds suspicious. But I don't know anything. It's pure speculation. So that was my number 3. And I see that on that one, at least we agree. Number 2.
There was nothing to agree about. I mean, there was nothing to agree about. I mean, don't say that we agree. You're just saying they stepped out and that you don't get it. What's your point?
Not saying that I don't get it. I say that we should just stop uploading that. It doesn't make any sense. But okay, you want to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. I will let you be contrarian, so you're happy, Björn. So number 2, there was this aha moment in July 2022, EPA coming out, doing this big announcement, this series of big announcements. And to me, it raises more questions than it brings answers for 2 main reasons. The first reason is, okay, now we go to parts per quadrillion. So we have to make sure it's not a must. If you take this the German way to look at it, which have these 2 ways of muss and soll. I don't know how to translate the soll in English, but it would be something like you should against you must. I guess that's the best translation. It is a health advisory, which EPA put out. It is not a regulation. It is a health advisory.
But they said clearly, hey, we have to monitor over the next years even further. And then that's what I said in my editorial. And after that, you will, another period of time, you will monitor even more, or maybe in that direction.
So
it's so boring, isn't it, guys?
Since July, I've seen GWI making articles saying we await every second minute there will be the regulation is finally going to go out, but still didn't see anything. And maybe it will come eventually. I'm just saying that in between, it raises questions. You have these parts per quadrillion. We have 4,700 PFAS officially. If you look at the lab analysis, we have in fact different ways of analyzing PFAS, but when it really goes to analyzing the PFAS themselves, there are 29 PFAS which are possible to analyze. So 29 out of the 4,700, which means all the others are analyzed as a proxy.
Isn't that the same as for the micropollutants?
Exactly. It's the same as for the micropollutants. Exactly. Even for micropollutants, nobody came with a threshold at parts per quadrillion.
No.
So parts per quadrillion means high-end spectroscopy or laser-induced stuff. I mean, basically, if you want the technology to measure that, I know one device to do that. And I was going to say one device on Earth, but that's not true. It's the NASA rover on Mars, which has such a laser. Probably there's a copycat somewhere on Earth. I doubt it is in every water laboratory. So first, you go to parts per quadrillion.
That was, by the way, sarcasm. Hopefully you heard that.
Parts per quadrillion doesn't really help. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, in this announcement, there was also a major thing. They have officially banned 12 PFAS. They took their strictest look. They put the line on the paper. They took their best pen and they strike through those 12 and they say, those 12, they are banned forever. We don't want to see them anymore. And I think the last time those 12 were used was in the 80s. So they just banned 12 substances.
But you see, it is possible to ban something.
Yeah, once it's not in use anymore for 40 years. So it's like...
Maybe not in the US, but most probably still in Europe, because we are 40 years back behind the US.
I would strongly disagree with that. I think when it comes to PFAS, the US have been better at communicating, but in fact, REACH was long time in advance of Europe. The thresholds
10 years ago,
in drinking water are way ahead of the US. You have regulations and threshold for total PFAS in the European regulation, when the US still don't have regulations for single PFAS, so let alone a regulation for the total of them. You have some states and some cities which go beyond, but in terms of US in general.
But they have the money. They want to spend, how much is it? 5 billion or 3 + 2 or something like that, which was the Biden administration at the beginning.
I'm just saying that health advisory itself, I'm not sure if it really helps. I even had that discussion on my podcast with Josiah Cox, which is operating plants and which says clearly...
First of all, the EPA issued health guidance. They haven't actually issued any formal rulemaking yet. And I would also say from being inside the industry, their health guidance was not helpful. They issued guidance for levels that are below minimum detection. If I can't detect it in the water, how am I going to treat it?
That doesn't help at all. It's rather the opposite, because it's creating some insecurity in people, because you just put big numbers and then you have to explain.
But there's one industry which is saying, yes, finally. You know which ones?
Bottled water?
Well, yes, you're right. The other ones are the laboratories who are able to measure that, because you have to take the water, find a lab which can measure, what is that?
Parts per quadrillion.
Exactly. So
it's LCMS or GCMS. You don't have that much ways to do it.
I mean, how many labs are there on Earth who can do that? And the ones who have this technology would say, yes. They're all coming to me.
Well,
money,
that's
money,
a very
money,
expensive
money.
technology, so it's fair that they do some money.
We should invest in that. We should invest
No,
in
but
that.
to me, the worst part of that was really the banning of the 12
Does
PFAS.
3M or Dow or DuPont has such a lab division? We should investigate that.
No, you're beyond sarcasm here, but okay. But yeah, to me also, this 12 banned PFAS was like, everybody was like, oh, look, they're banning something. Yeah, it's like when Switzerland took a micropollutant regulation, which was banning atrazine. And atrazine is a pesticide which is no longer in use since the 70s. Of course, it is a persistent in the environment, so it still makes sense for environmental reason. But in fact, you're banning something that nobody uses. So that was my number 2. My number 1 is a bit harder because I don't want to sound negative to the research team that came up with that, because they found out something which might be, on the long run, assuming they develop it and they bring it to the full scale, which might be revolutionary. But people have distorted that reality, and they have taken the announcement of that research team, they have turned it on its head, and they have said, look, we've solved PFAS. And that was this summer, shortly after the announcement from the EPA. It's a PhD student, Mrs. Tran, I think. I don't want to butcher her name, so if it's not Mrs. Tran, I'm going to put it just here, the real name, so that I don't butcher her name, because really nothing against her work. But basically, I'm going to put it in layman terms so that even I can understand it. PFAS is a very complex chemical with a lot of fluoride and C bonds. Okay, so that's one thing. And PFAS also has a head and a tail, as you said. And between the head and the tail, there's some weaker bonds, which are carbon and oxygen bonds. And what she found is that if you are able to break the head and the tail, then the rest kind of falls together. You have to first break that and then break the rest. And she found a pretty convenient way to do that, which is to put this PFAS in a DMSO soup, and then the head and the tail fall off, and basically you solve it. But even when you listen to her being interviewed, which she was quite a lot, being in the press, being in articles, she says everywhere, guys, don't misunderstand what we did here. We understood something new about PFAS, but it is decades ahead from industrialization. If you were to do that today, it's bringing other problems linked to chemicals. It's incredibly more expensive than any other technology on the market, but there is some potential inside. So she never said, this is the miracle solution. She never said that. But dozens of press articles did that for her. They all wrote, that was the thing. You could not open LinkedIn this summer without seeing that article shared 3 times from 3 different sources and by 10 different people, which were like, oh, we solved PFAS. And with these false narratives, the problem is that I already understand maybe 10% of it. And I had the chance to do 2 deep dives on PFAS on my podcast, thanks to Henrik Hagemann, who really took me a bit into that word. I've done maybe 30 hours of preparation work for these 2 podcasts because I wanted to understand what Henrik sent my way. I've read papers, and still I grab only 10% of it because I'm not really a chemist, and it really reaches the limit of what I can understand. So I would consider me like medium to low educated, but a bit educated, and I understand 10%. Now you put from the New York Times, from the Boston Globe, from the Harvard Business Review, and from whomever who just retakes the papers and translates it in whomever language, where they say we solved PFAS. And you're the man in the street, and you're like, on one hand, EPA says it's 100,000 times more dangerous than it used to be. European Union says, by the way, my REACH regulation means that you will have to take care about that. The Nordic Council of Ministers says that it costs 110 euro per inhabitant per year in terms of health cost. And you're like, oh, big worry. And then there's an article that says, hey, come on, it's solved.
It's solved.
Let's move to the next problem. What's the next problem? World Cup in Qatar, so let's go play football. And that is, to me, beyond dangerous. It is a crime. It is a crime against science, and it is a crime against...
So you're shooting against the journalism.
Yes.
I know where you come from, and I see that. And actually, what I can say is I have a Google alert on my computer. You know Google Alert. So that means for all who have no clue about Google Alert, you can go click in Google Alert and you can have some keywords, whatever that is, for instance, PFAS. And every morning, for instance, Google will give you a list about new articles which say something about PFAS. So that's Google Alert. And I have Google Alerts for PFAS, for micropollutants, and all the things. So I get a list every morning, 9 o'clock. You can see that. I get a list with new things. And in principle, if I would read them all, the world is free of problems because everything is solved from the technical point of view. Micropollutants is solved. Microplastic is solved since I have Google Alert. PFAS, yes, I saw that, is also solved, but it is not solved. What are the guys doing? They just create something. They create content for their magazine, however reliable this magazine is, can be even the New York Times. They create just something, and then they put it just a little bit into the wrong context, and everybody thinks, the layman thinks out there on the street, well, this is solved. Why are we talking about that? Why should I pay more wastewater for the bloody wastewater treatment plant here in Switzerland? Micropollutants is solved. I got the news this morning, and that is wrong education. That's true.
It made me think, it's going to be a stretch as an analogy, which I'm doing here. But it made me think of when these scientists found out a way to do in vitro meat.
Yeah.
Like meat which you grow in laboratories.
Which is good.
And there were so many articles saying, it's good, we solved everything, at the same climate change, everything. And then nobody said that the steak would be costing several tens of thousands. And nobody wants to...
The steak, I heard a podcast, and this steak they created was a couple of thousand, I think $10,000 US.
So we're not even speaking of the gold-plated things that you can have in the Turkish restaurant.
From ribbery. No, 10,000. Nobody will eat that.
But when that is meat, everybody starts to understand that, I know that I've eaten meat. PFAS is an abstract topic, and you come to them and say it's solved. And you don't read the small asterisk, which sends you somewhere down in the article where they say, well, today it costs several millions. So that was my top 3, you see.
Okay, I take that. But isn't that also a little bit a call for us, for you, for me, who are out there, for instance, on LinkedIn, on social media platforms, on YouTube, whatever we produce, we should be very careful what we say. Even our stuff could be taken in the wrong context. Or other way around, we should be researched more deeply before saying something. So the question is, either we let everything the expert doing and nobody understands them, or we take people who get a little bit a glimpse of that and try to translate that to the layman out there on the street. It is a very dangerous game because you have to understand that right and you have to give the message right. If you do it wrong, then you have a very negative effect.
I'm a bit more pissed or sad when I see people which arguably know more on PFAS than me and which are sharing these articles on LinkedIn saying, hey guys, sounds very promising, maybe we solve that. Because if you read it in depth and if you read, I've read the paper of that team and they say it black on white, it is not the solution. It is, we are starting to understand something.
You have to cook that for days, right?
Yeah. It takes time, it takes chemicals, there are lots of, it's not industrialized, but when highly technical people, which I would trust to be much better in the topic than I am, don't do this due diligence before sharing, or don't put like a disclaimer. Look, it's interesting, it goes in the right direction, but it is not to the stage where it is industrialized. If you don't, like me, have some hours to spend on stupid things to read scientific papers which you didn't know existed 10 minutes before, well, you're simply gonna swipe to the next thing, and that's dangerous. That being said, I'd like to switch to our deep dive because I'm looking forward that deep dive on the PFAS treatment technologies.
On the technologies? You want to talk about technologies?
I want to hear what you have to say.
There is definitely one technology which can solve all the problems, but most probably you will find it nowhere in any scientific paper.
That's a strong teaser. Let's go to it.
Do you want to use water responsibly for industrial processes? For more than 45 years, Envirochemie plans, constructs, and operates water and wastewater treatment systems. These include energy and resource-efficient solutions for water recycling, water reuse or for the treatment of processed water, cooling water or wastewater, and for resource recovery. In terms of plant operation, Envirochemie offers comprehensive services, operation management, contracting, and water treatment chemicals. Particularly practical for plant operation and optimization are the services provided by the Water Expert digital service platform, which gives operators a simple plant overview at any time. The water treatment experts develop various technologies and water treatment chemicals in their process engineering labs and technology center. Envirochemie delivers water technology that is made in Germany throughout the world. Envirochemie is a member of the Enviro Water Group, a strong network of companies with specialists in the solution of a broad range of requirements for sustainable water treatment.
So guys, let me tell you something which happened since we broadcasted our episode with Baldassar in January. People have stopped me in the streets and have said, "Oh, you're the guy from the water show." I said, "Yeah, why?" "Oh, we love that section which you did on overrated, underrated." And I was like, "Really? Did you really like that?" And said, "Yeah." And people everywhere in every city in the world were stopping me and saying, "We want overrated, we want underrated." So you've asked for it. Overrated, underrated is back.
What a teaser! What a teaser! That these things can only happen in France, right? Where people stop the other and I say, "Hey, I want to have this back." This will never happen in Germany.
Okay, so maybe nobody said that, but I personally liked this approach. So we said with Björn, we will be reviewing some technologies on PFAS, and we will say overrated, underrated. I said it in my top 3, so I'm going to apply my science to myself. I'm putting a big asterisk here. I am by no means a technical specialist in the removal of PFAS. So that's going to be my gut feeling, my impression, what I've heard left and right, and what I've researched for our conversation. I don't have that much practical experience in that field. So maybe, exceptionally, you're the one who knows today. So,
well, I think on the same page, and I think my knowledge I really have from the Chemical Research Institute, where you get all these kind of reports where you have to pay for that. And they had a pretty interesting report last year, I think June last year, where they really looked over all technologies on PFAS, which are given on the market right now. And that's a little bit I'm referencing to, call it this way.
So I think we've used the disclaimer right.
We have to be careful, right? Because after what we said before.
But I think
it's true. It's so true.
The idea is to put something out there and also to start the conversation, because we read and see many things. So that's going to be our gut feeling. If you have strong data to back why we're wrong, please come and tell us. I would love to be wrong on so many things, because that means we're learning something today all together. Which technology do we pick first?
The most common one is either IX or GEC. So which one?
Okay, so activated carbon, what would you say?
Totally overrated.
Overrated? Okay. It starts with a bang, I would say, because I would say underrated. Why do you say overrated?
First of all, the issue is you cannot break down with GEC or the PFAS. You have good numbers on...
Just to be clear, you are talking of GEC, so just for the layman.
Yeah, I'm just talking at the moment about granular additive, even powder is good. Even powder is good. It does have had a better adsorption kinetics. That's why it removes PFAS a little bit faster. But from the operation perspective, it is harder to operate. But GEC has the drawback for the short chain PFAS that can't really remove them. Long chain, pretty good. But compared to others, well, clearly drawbacks. More drawbacks than benefits, clearly.
When I was preparing for this conversation, I looked up the test result which the US EPA was publishing last year. And with the GAC, they had removal rates of 93 to 99%. So I'm pretty surprised. I mean, they said the same than you said, which is the long form comes better than the short form. But still, it sounds like it kind of works.
First of all, GEC is pretty well known, especially in the waterworks. So every waterwork has ever...
I'm just noticing that I'm saying something favorable for activated carbon, and you're saying something against activated carbon. I think that never happened on that show. Sorry?
If it comes to micropollutants, then it's a different game. No, but carbon is pretty well known. So we have a lot of data, and we know it works on PFAS if it comes to the long chain. If it comes to the short chain, it is a little bit more tricky. But for instance, and what it is most compared, if we talk about adsorption, it goes against IX. And it has drawbacks from the operation perspective, which clearly would someone say, well, IX is better than that.
What about coated activated carbon? I'll give you the example of a company which I met a while ago on my podcast, which is called Blue Act Technologies, Srinat Bodhisati. He's using whey as a coating for activated carbon, and he's proven to have very good results on PFAS.
There's principle, not coating, but there you have a lot of biochar on the market. And biochar has better adsorption rates for PFAS than the charcoal. So that I found interesting, but nevertheless, the short chain is a big pain there. And so as long as, we're looking for technology which can which can get rid of PFAS, overall, it is fully overrated for me.
Long chain, ding, it works.
Short chain?
Short chain doesn't really work. Genix?
Honestly, I don't know on Genix.
I think it's the same than short chain, but I don't want to say something more stupid than me. From what I've read, this coated activated carbon, which might have a different price point and a different use case. For instance, Blue Act is using a cartridge under the sink, but they seem to work pretty well all over the board. And I've seen Stephen Delet from Inopsys explaining that when they look at PFAS in their industrial applications, they use this kind of combination of biological treatment and activated carbon, and that they get good results.
In principle, reactivation or regeneration, whatever you do, it depends a little bit on the furnace, is a clear benefit for activated carbon, that you can reuse that. For instance, IX, you always have to take a fresh one. On the coating one, I remember 10 years back, during our times, right, where we were fighting about micropollutants, there was a company in Germany who had activated carbon, which was also coated and had a different shape with a huge surface. So pretty good. Much better than all carbons which are out there on the market in terms of performance. Much better. But they were, from the economical point and perspective, so far away, and you were not able to reactivate them, because then you have to bring it back to coating process, much too complicated, much too expensive. And that's why clearly, even if it is coated, maybe it works better, yeah, but think about operation, reactivation and things like that. There's clearly the benefit for granular activated carbon.
To me, what I was expecting to be seen as the drawback of activated carbon was something different, which is, sure, you're absorbing PFAS. There's also this element of, at the beginning of your life of the activated carbon, you're greatly absorbing PFAS, even 100% of it. What happens at the midlife and the end of life of your carbon is very different. And then once you get rid of your carbon, assuming you can't get reactivated, or you already reactivated it once and it's at its true end of life, what do? Do you burn it? And if you burn it, then your PFAS goes to the air. Is it much better than when it's in the water?
Yeah, but you can break it down with scrubbers and things like that.
It wasn't that obvious from what I read. Again, I don't have practical experience, but from what I read, it was pretty much flowing through the scrubbers. It was more a play of, do you want to put it to landfills and then maybe you bring it back at some point into the water?
Full stop. With activated carbon, you cannot remove fully. If it comes to specific PFAS, a selective PFAS, no chance.
Okay, so that was activated carbon. Let's move to the other one, which you said would be the obvious one, which is ion exchange. So ion exchange?
Overrated.
Okay, so they're all overrated.
They're all overrated.
Okay. I have to say, I knew you would put that technology in the list, and I've tried to wrap my head around it. I would use my joker here. I can't tell you if it's overrated or underrated.
Let's say, from the operation perspective, you can have more bed volumes through a bed with ion exchange as for activated carbon. So it's, I think, 4 times or 5 times more bed volumes. You have more bed volumes you can treat through one bed of ion exchange resin. So from the operational perspective, it's much better than activated carbon. On the other hand, it is much more expensive. So that's clearly the drawback. The other issue is you have a kind of brine. You can't really reactivate that. So you have always to have a kind of fresh one. And even then, we have the same story, long, short. Better in short chains than activated carbon, but even there, they don't remove all short chains PFAS. Ion exchange resin is 4 times more expensive than activated carbon. The other thing is you can put much more water through in bed compared to activated carbon.
To be clear, guys, we want to get the ball rolling here. So Björn has a study here, which I don't know. So you see here right now how it looks like, and you'll see the link also if you look to the notes. We're going to put it in the chat if you're on LinkedIn. Don't kill us. We try our best. We try to have an informed opinion about that market, but there's a limit to what you can do in your research work. So overrated because too expensive.
You cannot remove fully PFAS. That is the full story here.
But
you create brine and you...
Is that the target? I go back to the study I found from the DPA, which says if it's above 95%, then it ticks the box.
Yeah, but then still we have PFAS in our drinking water and our children get sick. Why is that?
Will they get sick at very low concentrations?
Do you know it now? Or
no.
Will we figure out in 20 years?
When EPA came with this health advisory, which is not a regulation, but a health advisory, the Association of the Water Treaters in the USA did a study and they said, okay, great. Let's say we translate health advisory into best practice, which means even if it's not a must, we will treat up to the levels you say we shall treat. And they estimated that it would cost 400 billion, I think it's 370, but 400 billion to treat PFAS to that level. And we all know that nobody's ready to put those 400 billion. Just to put a magnitude of things, the Biden infrastructure plan is 111 billion. It's historic, unprecedented. There was never such a high thing. And it's 4 times smaller than what you would need just for PFAS alone. Notwithstanding the fact that even if your water is pure and wholesome when it goes out of your treatment plant, if your infrastructure is crap, probably PFAS is going to leak back into that water. So just to say, is perfection part of this word, or is good enough better than nothing?
If it comes to health, shouldn't we obviously reach a limit that everything is out, that it doesn't harm us anymore? Even 5%, if 5% PFAS are left, it can harm us. Why are we talking about leaving 5% in?
Because today we have 100% in and we don't do anything. And if you tell to people that we have to go to zero, they will stay to 100%.
We are stupid people. So we harm ourselves. We know that. We don't do anything. Either we do it right, and then it must be 100% from my perspective, or we leave it.
I get your point, Björn. I'm just trying to ask if, look what we're doing here. Neither you nor me know 100% of the topic. But we say it's better to speak about the 50% I know and the 90% you know than to leave the floor fully open. Would it be so stupid to say activated carbon and ion exchange are two technologies which we do know, which have...
I mean, it's better than nothing. Yes, yeah. I agree. But let's say if the goal is to remove PFAS, then the goal must be to remove PFAS and not 95% of PFAS or PFAS.
Okay, so let's go to a technology which removes everything, which is high pressure membrane, aka reverse osmosis.
Sure.
Underrated or overrated?
Overrated.
Okay, there I don't get you. I will say underrated because reverse osmosis is always underrated. That's the technology which takes everything out of water. You don't have to say at which cost. You don't have to say what
exactly,
are the
that's the point.
But in terms of technology, the technology itself, I mean, it takes everything out.
You know, you look just on the reverse osmosis element. I agree with you, but it takes just hours and that is blocked. So you need all the pre-treatment, you need all the chemicals, you need all the energy to run this system.
If it's the last step treatment of a drinking water production line, it will not take hours to be blocked. Come on.
Refer to my study, and they tested that in Australia. It took hours. Even that, yes, you're right, it will take out 99%, even of short chain of PFAS, but from the operation perspective, it doesn't work alone.
Björn, reverse osmosis is used everywhere in drinking water treatment nowadays. It's not like a new technology, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't get clogged within hours. That's really...
I sent you the study, then you can read that, and then again you will say, okay, I'm sorry. Sure, not everyone. But let's say reverse osmosis alone cannot work alone. You need pre-treatment, you need chemicals.
But they exist. We are going into treatment plants which are built and which are operating. We are talking about adding one more treatment at the end of that treatment train.
Yeah.
Because if you take raw water and you put it through an ion exchange, nobody would do that. It's just stupid. The same applies for a raw. I know I've joked about that last month when we were in the container because theoretically it works, not for long, but it works.
Yeah.
But in the reality, people who are using RO today in drinking water production, they use it as the last treatment step. And yes, there is probably ultrafiltration before and probably some disinfection and probably some stuff. But that is already there.
If it is already there, then it makes sense. But if you have nothing, I know waterworks, which they have nothing because they have so pure water, and if they would put a RO system in place, then there would be...
But even if they have nothing because it's already potable, then it's the same. I mean, that water doesn't have so much inside that it would clog a reverse osmosis. That doesn't make sense.
Well, it does make sense that you have to ensure that the membranes stay clean. And that is the most biggest issue. And the flux issue, the flux will go down over the time, and you have to ensure it will come back. And then you need chemicals and things like that.
Okay.
And even then, what do you do with the brine?
I thought we would have kind of a consensus because I gave from the beginning of that conversation that I'm ready to listen to what you have to say because I feel you know a bit more.
Okay, the other point
remember, guys, this is the same person who said that desalination is the magic pill. So to him, you take salt water from the ocean and you put it through a reverse osmosis, that works. But
The
you
point
take
is-
a pure and wholesome water from
Listen.
a reservoir which is drinkable
Listen.
today without any treatment, and you put it for reverse osmosis, it's gonna clog within minutes. That's nonsense, Björn.
No, the point is, what do you do with the brine?
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
But
come with
I
fair
mean,
arguments and I'm fine. Don't come with
It's-
stupid arguments.
No, it's the same argument. And if I say that desalination is a magic pill, it was the title of a show of ours. Think about why this show exists. Anyway, what do you do with the brine if it is PFAS? So even there, you have still PFAS left.
Okay, so that's the same problem then with ion exchange, which is that you have a concentrated draw and you need to
Exactly.
do something about that.
It is for me
So
overrated.
Björn, I have a problem because the 3 technologies now which you deemed overrated are the 3 only technologies which in my US EPA report were in green by saying those work. And then there was a list of another 10 which they say don't work. Like not like they say it would be too expensive, like they say it doesn't work. So you've taken the 3 which are stated they work and they say they're overrated. So we are in deep shit unless we ban PFAS, which of course it is the solution.
That would be one solution.
So what's the next technology?
Well, there's another one. For instance, what about supercritical?
Well, let me guess. You're going to say overrated?
No, I ask you first. I ask you first, and then I want to hear your argument for that.
So then let me be controversial for the sake of being controversial. I'm going to say underrated.
He has really no clue. It is underrated. It is underrated due to the fact that there is a possibility for that. There is clearly a
That's the reason why I
possibility.
say underrated.
But still, we haven't reached to a level where we can really judge about that. Full stop.
Okay, so let me do it differently. Overrated in terms of the hype around it, because everybody seems to be running around and say PFAS will be solved because supercritical oxidation
I mean,
is
not
the good thing.
everybody. We have to be honest. Not everybody.
Quite a lot. I interviewed Kobi Nagar on my podcast from 374 Water. It was one of the most demanded episodes.
Not because of supercritical, because of PFAS. PFAS is a topic.
No, wait. My point is the following. When I say the most demanded, before I recorded with Kobi, many people came to me and say, would you do something about supercritical water oxidation? Like people are really expecting that technology, because when you look at the technology on the paper, and I think we already covered that once on the water show. If you look at the technology on the paper, it is exothermic, which means it is energy positive. It allows you to tap into the chemical energy of water, which we do know is 7 times higher than the energy needed to treat water. So it means we could be generating energy while doing something good, and it is proven in pilot scale
but that's exactly the point.
To destroy the PFAS up to the point of mineralization. So really, it doesn't exist anymore. Like really, you don't discuss about a draw or a brine or whatever. So for those reasons, I do understand why people get excited. Now, your point, which is a fair point, which is to say, great on pilot scale, but it hasn't done that upscale. So basically what I was saying about the DMSO soup and boiling is a bit the same we're discussing here with supercritical water oxidation.
No, supercritical water oxidation exists since the 80s.
But
that is
at
the
full
point.
scale?
No, not at full scale, but the idea
So it's the same.
And someone wants to reach the level for full scale since 40 years.
So it's the same. It's
so
still in
that-
this
it's-
industrialization
But it's
state.
but there's nothing new. That's what I want to say. Nothing new developed over the last years. The technology, or let's say the idea for supercritical and subcritical. Subcritical is under 374 degrees. That would be still, I would not say enough, but let's say it would be possible to treat the water even with subcritical and not only with supercritical. That is also another option. Supercritical has never reached really the level that it is industrial standard, that you can really use it. Subcritical for some certain extents. For instance, Siemens Simpro is doing that with spent caustic. They have a couple of installations. Even there in Italy, there are a couple of installations for subcritical from an Italian company. But for supercritical, really above 374 degrees, not much.
The reason why I say underrated is because first, I was pretty impressed when I interviewed Kobe and everything around 374 water. And as I say, I'm a layman for that, so I can judge with what I know. But the real reason why I say underrated is that when I discussed with Henrik Hagemann, who arguably is a real specialist of the PFAS field, and we discussed a bit all this way to remove PFAS, because his argument is we should not be removing PFAS, we should be recycling PFAS. And so he's heading towards that direction. But when we discussed all the ways to remove PFAS, the only where he wasn't just raising his eyes and say, that's nonsense, is Supercritical. So I would give him the credits that, and he'll correct me if I'm butchering his thoughts, but I think we recorded that thought. So if I'm butchering it, it's really I understood it wrong. But his thought seems to be like, if one of the technologies has a chance to do it, it's Supercritical. But the point
that's clearly what he said, yeah.
If it has the chance to do it, it also means that it is not in the position to do it today. And that maybe you're right, we are struggling for 40 years to bring it to the full scale. So it's still a way to go.
Let's say to short track a little bit the conversation here, we see overrated, underrated. For me, clearly, it must be a combination. And there are several combinations out there who are tested and proven which works. For instance, nanofiltration together with IX. That's clearly something. Membrane technology together with activated carbon. Just last year, Cerafiltech raised 30 million. And they have ceramic membranes together with powder activated carbon.
You know them?
Yes, it's a German company. These are the kind of technologies. UV together with, what was the technology? UV together with, I forgot it. But an AOP together. All I'm saying is...
Dinora and Clarity are making concentration and then electrochlorination, and that works as well. You're right. Combination sounds to be like...
And the combination is that what will work to cover the entire PFAS. That is the interesting fact here for me. And that's why I think these standalone technologies,
even the combination have the limits, because I feel like my example of Dinora and Clarity, what they do works, removes the PFAS, is quite economic, but it works in batches. So you cannot work in continuous operation. Oh, Julie, if you listen or watch that, come and correct me. Yeah. I mean, each of these combinations will have the limitations as well. But
not as much as if they would stand alone. That is the point.
Okay.
So you can break down everything that it is just a fraction, and then you can treat the fraction, for instance. If you have membranes and powder activated carbon, for sure the carbon is for the adsorption, but then you have still a physical barrier so that you can treat it with the ultrafiltration membrane. So
for you, the combination underrated because we don't do it enough, and that is probably the future.
Absolutely.
In the single technology, which arguably might also be a combination, advanced oxidation processes?
And there, actually, I am with my Joker card. I can't go into the AOP directly. I think that they are a little bit underrated because nobody really understands them.
We really disagree on everything. I would say overrated. To me, it's like...
as I said, I'm the layman there. With the AOP, you are better than I am.
For me, in advanced oxidation processes...
Which one? All of them? UV, ozone?
Let me come to it. To me, generally speaking, that category is I have a hammer and now I'm looking for nails. And then whenever I can hammer, I put some nails. I'll give you an example. When I worked with Ozonia, guess what we were using to do AOP, ozone. They would never do UV peroxide because it's a nonsense. We're an ozone company, so we were doing ozone peroxide. And then you see Trojan or Xylem. What Trojan does is they do UV peroxide because they're producing the UV. So that's this element of when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's the first thing. The second thing is that AOPs, regardless of the way you use to get to it, the only point is to get to OH point, the hydroxyl radical.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to produce the hydroxyl radical. And the hydroxyl radical seems to have a limited efficiency on PFAS destruction.
From my knowledge, especially ozone works pretty well.
Not alone. You would really put it... I mean, it's when you see that Clarity does that with electrochlorination, yes, probably ozone would work as the second step here. And an AOP would work as well as the second step here because they are more potent oxidator than the electrochlorination itself. But that means you need to have the pre-treatment. So it's rather the combination. So if you're doing a combination, then do you want to go for the most expensive second step, which is AOP, or if you can go for electrochlorination, it will never float in terms of economics of it. Okay, so all of those, we ticked it. There's one thing which you've been teasing like hell since the beginning of that episode. It's about time you reveal the truth, Björn. What is this technology?
You don't know that.
Which is the one to rule them all?
It's plasma.
Oh,
guys, plasma. And I tell you a story. And this came back in preparation for the show. During my university time, I had a presentation about what to do with waste.
So that was between the two world wars.
And that was nasty. No, really, to be serious. And I looked into the field to use plasma for waste. So that means you can pluralize everything and everything is done. And I was thinking, okay, that sounds good. Are there any references? Yes, there are. In Japan, there are a couple of furnaces and they have a couple of 100 tons a day how they treat waste with plasma. Even in Canada, they have a lot of. So that strikes me that I wrote a Wikipedia article about that as the first person, which is still existing, and I'm really proud of it. And I was thinking, isn't that the same? So I was looking into the study I'm referring to, and even they have plasma that you can use 2 electrodes. You put a lot of energy. We are talking here about 4,500 kilovolts an hour. So it's a lot. I know that. But you destroy everything in one step. And it works.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Clearly underrated 3 times.
I
know it is maybe not for each and every, but maybe we can have a centralized station where we put all the wastewater too, or the thing.
Guys, I don't even know if I should contradict him because he's so much in his word now. I don't want to break him. I mean, come on, Björn, plasma.
Sure.
You've teased for 1 hour to say plasma.
But all I'm saying, it would work from the technical perspective. Yeah. It is somehow proven. For waste, they do it for high contaminated waste. It would work for PFAS, but I think it is not realistic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't have to say it. It's great.
Because nobody wants to spend 4,500 kilowatt hours.
I was going to tell you that this summer in my garden I had some mosquitoes and I was pretty annoyed because there were mosquitoes. So I thought of using an atomic bomb, which is of course kill the mosquitoes, but maybe also do a bit of harm next to the mosquitoes. But it's good. You said it yourself. It's not realistic.
But from a technical perspective, it would work.
So guys, there's a good chance that you just have my face watching at Björn explaining plasma. We were so deep into that technological discussion that the cameras shut down. If that's the case, I really
hopefully go out, check the Wikipedia article. I think it's just in German, unfortunately. Someone has to translate that. But there, I wrote an article. I'm still in the list of the authors.
Let's conclude on that technological part, because if I just recap what you said, every single technology is overrated.
If it is standalone. I think if we really want to solve the PFAS problem, and if we really want to solve it seriously, that we remove as much as possible, and then I'm talking about 100%. For sure, I will never get 100%. I know that, 99.9 whatever. Then I think we should go with a combination. Okay. A standalone one will not, solve all the problems. Brine, operation, long, short chain, things like that. And that's why the combination of one of these, whether it's nanofiltration together with UV or a membrane technology with activated carbon, doesn't matter. But a combination, I think that is the key, and we should strive forward to do this.
I'll let Björn with that conclusion because I said it in the opening and I stand my point. That was one of these very rare occasions where I have to say I'm pretty amazed by the level of research he's put into that. So I give you the credit and the merit of the results of that section. We'll put the links to whatever we have in terms of studies, the one I found, the ones you found, and of course the Wikipedia article that Björn wrote. That has to be in the references of this episode. When we wanted to put that show on the agenda, maybe we can give a bit of behind the scenes. It's because we thought PFAS is an important topic. Yeah. That's why we said we want to dedicate a full show to PFAS, like the 3 sections of the show dedicated to PFAS. That's what we did. We also knew that neither Björn nor me nor arguably almost anyone in the water industry is a specialist of PFAS, but we have to get the ball rolling because it sounds to be a very serious topic, which you can maybe solve by banning PFAS.
Or with a plasma,
or with plasma. I mean, you take one of Björn's solutions, or maybe we have to come with something which is more realistic.
Or we can still monitor over the next years, or we just live with the risk, Antoine is saying.
Probably the 2 extremes are wrong. And probably what you said about the combination sounds like the most sound approach as per the knowledge we have today. But I think we wanted to start and light the fire and start the debate. I guess there will be a sequel in the water show about PFAS at some point because it is sufficiently big of a topic that
this problem is here to stay.
And that being said, it was a good show. Let's switch to the conclusion.
So, Antoine, as I said, plasma is definitely the solution. And if you don't believe in this solution, at least we should ban PFAS. Come on.
Okay, so we're really back to square one. Life is a circle, and you come back with that crazy idea.
At least I have an idea. Come on, what was your idea? You told me something from the news.
No, I think I brought some strong opinions about what I found in the news. I even think maybe you'll tell me I went sometimes over the top, so don't tell me I don't have ideas. Come on, Björn. But one thing's for sure, we had that debate on the technologies. We said when we had a strong opinion and when we were sure. We also mentioned when we weren't that sure, because we wanted to get the ball rolling and to get your opinion. So whatever you think about any of the technologies we qualified as under or overrated, come tell us. I mean, in the comments, in the direct messages, make your own version of that post, share it on LinkedIn. We want to hear you guys. We want to have your opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, the point is really, and that's what we said this morning we started the show, this topic is crucial for the water industry. Full stop. It is a forever chemical, so it will stay forever. So, and we as water industry have to deal with that.
That's maybe the only part where we agree with Björn today, so let's take it and...
Listen, I will tell you again. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.